And we start right now with a Fox News alert. The United States is now enforcing President Trump's reciprocal tariffs on dozens of countries around the globe.
The president says America is in the driver's seat and that Japanese and South Korean officials are set to fly in to try to cut trade deals.
So the new tariffs, which went into effect just after midnight, include a 104% duty on China total, 20% over the fentanyl trafficking, 30% over the reciprocal tariffs, and an additional 50% added after Beijing announced 34% counter tariff on U.S. goods.
So the president says that the U.S. is taking in $2 billion a day from the highly tailored reciprocal tariff deals. Lucas Thomason joins us live with more. Good morning, Lucas.
Well, good early morning, Lawrence. And guys, prices are expected to rise as these new tariffs were launched beginning at the stroke of midnight last night. The U.S. government began collecting tariffs on roughly 90 countries. We have a list for you right here. Top Trump officials say they've heard from 70 of them trying to negotiate new trade deals with the United States. Now, in addition to China, the U.S. is slapping tariffs on U.S. allies as well, including Israel, Japan, and South Korea. Here's President Trump on the massive tariffs he levied on Beijing.
Additional tariffs on Chinese goods are in place effective midnight tonight at 104%. Until they make a deal with us, that's what it's going to be. I think they'll make a deal at some point. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal.
Chinese officials vow to fight to the end. Here's Caroline Leavitt at the White House yesterday.
China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder.
Hey, hey, hey. Guess what, Dave? Guess what? Guess what? Woo-hoo. I'll tell you the tale of a Chinese bug, a military drill to pollute your pure blood. Go back and tell the others, buy all the toilet paper. The Wuhan laboratory filled up the cemetery. Transhuman globalists tried to take control of us. But guess what? Guess what? Everything will be okay. Guess what day it is? It's hump day! Get it on!
We love hump day around here. What is a new song? What other show will bring you a brand new banger from bluegrass country with camels on a pirate ship at the Wuhan laboratory than this program? Ladies and gentlemen, you are locked into the right place because we pay attention, and something remarkable dropped yesterday. Government confirmation of the earliest COVID cases directly from Wuhan. Oh yeah, baby. American service members getting sick and Biden covering it up. Donald Trump making moves to make sure that Dr. Fauci can't be pardoned. And this is why. Today is Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. Trump gives a barn burner speech defending the American worker against China. We're talking a lot about China because it's all making sense. Everything is clicking together. Everything is finally falling into place. And we understand precisely what's going on with the president in China right now. And there are some old grudge matches that are happening, and we are winning. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of winning, we're going to be joined by the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who just announced that he will be running against washed up, feeble, translucent, weak, Joe Biden-esque Rhino John Cornyn. So he will be giving us an interview talking about that. Hopefully one more MAGA in the Senate, and the great Julie Kelly, of course, to break down the deepest of the deep state secrets. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Yo, you might have noticed that there's a trade war going on. This is something that is going to affect everybody's bank account. It's going to affect the markets. There is a total bond breaking, unwinding of trade going on that's happening between China and the United States of America. And so get ready and go gold. It's the golden era, of course. You should, frankly, be considering right now some more stable assets than the meme coins that I know half my team is currently investing 100% of their salaries into. Guys, no more fart coin, please. Go gold. Go gold. All right? I'm preaching to the staff here at the Benny Show, but I'm also preaching to you, ladies and gentlemen. We invested in gold, and it's quite frankly, without question now, the best performing asset in our portfolio. There is a absolutely rock solid strategy for doing this, especially inside of your 401k or IRA. Physical gold and silver can be a very powerful tool to take control of your wealth and have a stable retirement and just stable earnings. You want to learn how? Text Benny to 85545 right now. You get all of the info that you could possibly ever want. You can qualify also for a brand new Advantage Gold event where they're going to be giving away $1,000 in free silver just for attending. It's the Advantage Gold Summit. So don't wait for the system to fail. Text Benny to 85545. Help protect what's yours. Data rates and message rates apply. Performance may vary. Consult your financial and tax professionals. Okay. All right. Oh, man. Donald Trump always shows his cards ever so slightly, if you are watching. If you're looking at what the president's doing, he'll tell you who he's going to pick as vice president, right? Way ahead of time. He'll tell you what's going to happen in the global arena of trade or war. This is a good example here at the White House with Zelensky. As we covered yesterday, President Trump treated Zelensky unlike we've seen him treat any world leader at the White House. There was palpable rage, anger, bitterness, resentment at Zelensky for a number of things, for a number of dirty tricks. Zelensky, you might well know, is, of course, defrauding the United States of America. China's doing that, too. Zelensky is a place where there's a bunch of biolabs with very mysterious origins. China's doing that, too. Zelensky is somebody who has sabotaged President Trump's first term. You'll recall that it was a phone call with President Zelensky that got Trump impeached at the first time. China did that, too. China sabotaged Trump's first term. We're going to talk all about it. They did it with a bioweapon called COVID, and now we have the receipts. But you can see that the administration, you don't even need to hear the clip. The clip's great. Have you tried saying thank you? Put it on a shirt. It's a, I don't advise you to go home and say that to your wife, but yo, this was brutality in the White House. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. Nothing ever like this has ever happened in American history. There was a grudge match against Ukraine and against Zelensky that the president and J.D. Vance were going to win. They were going to take his head and slam it up against a locker. And there were past sins that they wished to rectify in this meeting. So you see, President Trump, you don't have the cards. You don't have the cards. Compare this meeting to what's happening in China right now. What's happening in China is there are massive tariffs that are being implemented, 104%. And that is going to make it, well, damn near impossible for the Chinese to do any real business with the United States of America. And this is a very bad position for China to be in. Let's just go over some of the more important realities for China right now. Pop this window up, please, Glenn. As many problems as the USA might have, I'd say China's are worse. China is seeing the slowest growth they've had in a decade. Their attractiveness as a recipient of foreign domestic investment is at an all-time halt. They have very difficult demographic problems, too many old people, not enough young people. They need exports. They do not have the capacity to absorb everything that they create. China is in a very, very bad negotiating position. The only reason they're in a position at all, though, is because of traders in this country. In 1990, top exporters to China, the top exporter to 175 countries was the United States of America. China had 8. In 2000, it had gone from 15 to 155. In 2010, you were almost at parity. And here in 2024, China is the top exporter to 125 countries, as America is the top exporter to 35 countries. Our politicians let this happen. But this is a major problem for China because if they stop their exports, their economy collapses. You can understand here, they don't have a deep, mature economy. In fact, all of modern day China was built entirely off the backbone of America, American dollars flooding into China. Meanwhile, China holding up massive walls and tariffs, making it impossible to do business, stealing our IP, and creating bioweapons that they loose on the world in order to influence our elections. We're going to get to that. But if America stopped buying from China, America is the largest market in the world. We control 40% of the world's GDP. We control like 80% of the consumer trends on the planet. If America stops buying from China, their economy not just collapses, they go back to the Stone Age, which is where they belong. Because before America came along, that's where China was. Now, America, for many stupid reasons, we decided to start meddling with China because we wanted to play them off the Russians. This is how this all started. But then our politicians got fat and greedy and weak and realized that they could make a lot of money in China. Mitch McConnell has made untold hundreds of millions of dollars in China. This is why Mitch McConnell, in an abject state of delirium, dementia, and pettiness, continues to vote against President Trump's agenda, and specifically these tariffs. We're cutting off the gravy train for McConnell or Chinese dollars. China's in a terrible position. China has three options: concede defeat to whatever terms Trump demands, devalue their currency, the yuan, by 40%, or unleash the biggest fiscal stimulus in history, $3 trillion, which will push its debt off the charts and make its currency completely worthless. President Trump is fighting back extremely hard against China. And there's a reason for that. China is what the globalists see as the future state. Donald Trump is here to cancel globalism. We're going to get into Donald Trump's storied history fighting globalism. But let's just set the playing field correct. As we will prove with the documents and in this show, China has been the laboratory of the next future state for the World Economic Forum, a total anarcho-tyranny state where most of us are slaves, live in slave labor. Most of us work as slave laborers with no property, no freedom of speech, no freedom of association, and a social credit system, a complete locked down technocracy with total state power, single party unipower. The courts are rigged, the markets are rigged, everything in China is rigged, and you're under surveillance at all times. There has never been a state, Soviet Union couldn't even dream of this, never been a state that is more like 1984 George Orwell. China was the proving grounds for the horrors that the World Economic Forum wished to visit on all of us. They wished to take that model, the China model, and export it all around the world. And all they need to do is kill America. Why would they want to kill America? Because we are the vanguard of Western civilization. Without America, there is no more Western civilization. You've seen what's happened with Europe, seen what happened to Canada, seen what happened to the entire hemisphere. Without America holding the side up, Western civilization collapses. And Western civilization is, of course, the only threat to the New World Order. Our past, our rights, our connection to God. And so this is why China must fail. If President Trump was president during Tiananmen Square, then China would be we'd all be vacationing in China. If we had a president with some balls during the Tiananmen Square protests in China, where millions of Chinese protested for democracy and for normalization and to tear down the communist systems, you can take that screen off, thank you. Because President Trump would have obviously done the things that were required to collapse the system. They were this close to collapse. You can put it up. We have to put up the images because all of these images are banned in China. You have to understand, you can't even get these images in China. Google bans them. You have to understand the full play here. It's not really about your 401k. Okay? I'm taking a battering just like everybody else. This is about something much larger. If you can destroy the only New World Order state, the only, really, you could call it pseudo-functional communist state in the world right now, If you can destroy it and bring it low, and you can cause revolution, or whatever is going to be the result here, then you destroy that future that the World Economic Forum continues to try to foist upon us unwillingly, try to visit upon us in the horrors. If Donald Trump were president at this time, China, the communists in China would have fallen. But instead, we had weak cucks who decided, instead of pushing China, flipping China over, and allowing it to become very similar to like a Japan, like a South Korea, like any of these Asian countries that are perfectly fine to visit. They let China sink into further totalitarianism, where you can't even find this image online in China. These images are banned. President Trump, not too long after Tiananmen Square, went on the earliest version of Fox News in 1996, and he talked about how Americans negotiate trade. And he talks about this moment. God has remarkable timelines, man. This clip is over 30 years old, and it's President Trump ringing like a bell. Sounds just like he does today, saying we get completely and totally taken advantage of by these monsters, and we're a laughingstock as a nation because we have weak leaders that get wined and dined by the countries or get corrupt payouts, and then the system steamrolls over the American worker. Watch.
This last auto deal is an example. Here we are, we're sitting there, it's restricted.
Just a moment here.
Restricted. We're sitting, they can't come in, and all of a sudden, this country falls. We do the old fold now. I've never seen it.
That isn't the way the press reported it.
Well, no.
The press reported it that we had a deal.
And then all of a sudden, it turned out that it was not a good deal for us. And we had all the cards. I mean, it's not like we didn't have the cards. It's like, keep your cars out of here until you open up. That's all. Keep your cars out. And then the first hour was like, oh, we made this wonderful deal. After about 15 seconds after that, people realized we got duped. I just don't understand it.
What's wrong with us? I mean, I guess they said, well, this would hurt American car dealers.
You know, what's wrong with us? I don't know. They're afraid politically to make a little bit of a tough stand. That wasn't even a tough one. That was a no-brainer. You would have had the Japanese cars out for 19 and a half seconds, and you would have won every single point. It's the most incredible failure in negotiation that I've seen. But it happens all the time. I just don't understand it. So I would take a much harder stand. I'd take a much more difficult stand, I would say. Make a couple of enemies. I think I'd make a lot of friends, ultimately.
If the United States government took a firmer stand with foreign countries, would we be better off, or are we so much now a part of the nation of the community of nations that we can't really afford to offend anybody?
I think we'd be better off, and I think we'd be far more respected. I think the Japanese would respect us far more than they do. I don't think they have any respect for us, and they shouldn't have any respect for us because we are idiots when it comes to what's happening. I mean, look at dealing with Japan. I mean, just take a look at what's going on. I mean, they make hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and we lose money in deficits, and nothing happens. And they say, no, the Japanese are learning, and they're starting to open up. In the meantime, every second goes by, we're losing. I just think that people would have far greater respect for this country if we took a much tougher stand. It's really quite pathetic.
All you have to do is swap Japan with China in that commentary. And it's the exact same argument that President Trump is making today. But China is so much worse than Japan ever was. This was before China was in the World Trade Organization. Why was China allowed to do total open and free trade with America when it is never once aligned with the values and rules of fair trade? China go through your timeline right now. You will find hundreds of American manufacturers with the same story. We design a product, we invent a product here with our own ingenuity. We can't get it manufactured here. We have to go to China. China, as soon as we manufacture in China, 20 different versions of my product pop up in China, getting sold for pennies on the dollar back here in America, using American sales forces like in Amazon. And then the American inventor gets put out of business. The American worker gets put out of business. This is the Chinese model. Theft and slave labor. And a technocracy that is a 100% surveillance prison state. Remember the secret Chinese police offices they had all throughout America that Joe Biden allowed? Oh man, we have so much more about what Joe Biden allowed China to do. Whew, we got to get to it. Okay, here we go. What does Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, have to say about China? Boy, oh boy. He must have read this poll. Here we go. Are Trump's tariffs good or bad for America? New polling out today. Donald Trump winning on the tariff question. Oil prices slamming. Record low grocery prices the same. iPhones might be more expensive. I'm not sure. President Trump saying, cool off this morning. Chill out. Chill. Don't be a panikin. Panic publican. A tariff tard. It's going to work because China has no cards. Listen to the Treasury Secretary this morning.
Maria, I think it's unfortunate that the Chinese actually don't want to come and negotiate because they are the worst offenders in the international trading system. They have the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world. And I can tell you that this escalation is a loser for them. That they have some very smart, the economists, the academicians, technocrats within their bureaucracy, and they would be telling the leadership that we do not have the edge here. They are the surplus country, that their exports to the U.S. are 5 times our exports to China. So they can raise their tariffs, but so what?
From the guy who collapsed the entire British pound because he saw the structural inefficiencies inside of the United Kingdom and their model. This is Scott Bessent. I can't believe I'm praising somebody for working with George Soros, but listen, man, President Trump, take your enemy's best players, take your enemy's weapons and use them in your favor. Holy smokes. This is Scott Bessent doing what he does best. Now, here you go. Klein, can you pop that up? This is the value of the Chinese yuan. This is the point. The point is to, and you got to scroll out to let's do the 5 years there, the little graph there. Oh boy, would you look at that? This thing is not doing well. It is collapsing through the floor. And the futures look even worse. And this is the point. China is so unstable, has been so corrupt, is so fake. It's a fake country. It's a fake country. It's a country that survives. There's entire cities that have been built in the last 10 years that didn't exist 10 years ago. It's not real. It's not a real country. China's not real. It's entirely and totally created off the backbone of the American economy, the theft, wholesale theft from the American economy, and our idiot leaders that are corrupt, that want to continue it because they get rich off it. This is what President Trump is stopping. He's doing it by absolutely slaughtering their currency and pushing them into a corner that they can't get out of. Kevin O'Leary, who does a ton of business in China, explains beautifully here why, I'm happy to have my businesses shutter in China. Let's go.
104% tariffs in China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. It's just not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration. You may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric. Finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. She can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well,
I'm
hold
not
on
talking
a
about
second,
tariffs
Kevin.
on
Well,
60
I hear you, but hold on. If we're talking about people, the average consumer, not necessarily the head honchos of businesses all across the globe, can they withstand the pressure of that sort of tax on the goods?
It's short-lived. There will be.
But what's your timeline compared to, you don't know the average American's timeline, what they can actually survive. There's people right now who can't survive
400% tomorrow morning, cheese on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
Do it. Do it. Understand what we're destroying here. Do I have anything against the Chinese people? I don't think so. Never been in China. I employ a half Chinese person, Klein Wong, Killer Klein. There he is. He's beating his chest right now. He's so proud. But even Killer Klein knows that he doesn't want to live inside of an anarcho-tyranny, technocratic death camp. No. The purpose of China was to destroy America. One must die. China was going to be the new model. They were done with Western civilization. Western civilization didn't work out well for them. Too many rights, too much freedom. Let's go back to the feudal model, the slave model. Let's go back to slavery. They have slave camps in China. This is normal. This is where all your products come from, your precious products. Where all of the Nikes are manufactured, right? Like from all of the NBA players that complain about a history of slavery here in America, getting their shoes with their faces on it, sewn by slaves. No. That was the model. That's not our future anymore. And we're not going to be slaves to a communist system. And so that's why China must be destroyed. That's why this entire operation must work. It has to work, ladies and gentlemen. Now, China just banned the largest Christian church. There's a Christian church. There's like these churches that are allowed to exist sort of under the radar and missionary activities in China. They just banned all of that. They, of course, see this as a threat. They see religion as a threat, connection to God as a threat. In China, the government is God. There is no God. Of course, there's a God, right? They'll learn one day. But in China, there's no God. They banned the church. Meanwhile, in America, just something before we bounce here to our headline of the day. Meanwhile, in America, for the first time in years, in decades, Christianity is on the rise again. The Christian share of the United States population stabilizes and increases for the first time in 50 years. This is a battle of two ideologies, and you have to see it as that. And I think it'll help when you look at some of the pain in your portfolio. I think that will help if you actually look at the totality of the battlefield and what's being fought for here. Okay? One final thing, an important, and just because we pay attention, there's a clip that's nearly 10 years old from the streets of Hong Kong. A young man, clearly a prophet, warning President Trump about what was to come. Here we go.
Donald Trump, don't trust China. China is asshole.
Klein, was that you before you started working here? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, get your financial house in order. American financing can help you. Obviously, China doesn't have its financial house in order with everything that's happening in the economy right now. It feels like we're Walking on some shaky ground. Prices are stuck really high levels, and it seems like nothing is affordable. No wonder so many are relying on credit cards to cover the gaps. Credit card debt is skyrocketing. Get out of that credit card debt, man. Some interest rates are like 20, 30%. That should be criminal. I really do believe that. But anyway, if you're a homeowner, face this uncertainty with my friends at American Financing, who can get you on solid ground. Using the equity in your home to help pay down your high-interest credit card debt. Right now, you could be saving $800 a month. You could skip a couple mortgage payments. It's like a great way, actually, to jump ahead. And that's what we all need, right? Call American Financing now. It costs you nothing to get started. You can delay your mortgage payments, giving you a cushion in uncertain times. 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219. AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. Whew, boy, you had to pay your taxes this year? That's just so, it's just so painful. We're going through it right now. Oh man, it's just a total colonoscopy. It's just awful. It's just terrible. Anyway, get your financial house in order, right? Okay, we all must learn these painful lessons. Sometimes sadly every single year. All right, okay. What is the painful lesson that we learned with China, and what is the through line here with the Chinese problem, right, that we're facing? Is that China as a China is technically like a vassal state of the United States of America in the sense that we are very intertwined with the Communist Party of China. Remember Mark Milley saying that he would be tipping off Chinese generals to American military actions? After January 6th, Mark Milley immediately calls the Chinese to like snitch on Trump. Why isn't that guy in Guantanamo Bay? Why is he not in prison yet? Mark Milley, we've ripped down all of his portraits, put him in jail. Not the guy that deserves to go to jail. Dr. Fauci. We played you this clip. I don't know, for some reason we're the only show on planet Earth that keeps track of these things. But here we go. We're professional attention payers. We're professional noticers around here. Pattern recognition. Dr. Fauci, on the days before President Trump got into office, Dr. Fauci predicted that COVID would happen. This seems crazy because 2017, nobody was even like thinking about COVID. That doesn't even exist, obviously, right? Right? Here we go.
Is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.
A surprise outbreak. Got it. Okay. So it's a strange thing to say. He says this on the eve of President Trump taking office. Now, of course, there was a surprise outbreak, just as he had planned. And now we know some dirty little details about how Dr. Fauci covered it all up. And in fact, how Americans were the first affected by COVID. This will come as a shock to you. The American military. They actually visited COVID upon the American military. This is how sick and evil these bastards are. When President Trump says that Joe Biden's pardons aren't real because they were signed by AutoPen, that he can go after Dr. Fauci, please, I pray. Of all of the promises of President Trump, I pray that that's the one that's the most true. Please. Dr. Fauci is the greatest mass murderer in your lifetime or mine. Possibly in history. I don't know what the exact death toll was for COVID. I think it would be easy to find out. But you could put that up against Pol Pot, Mao Zedong, Joseph Stalin. What's the total death toll? What's the total death toll? Okay, 7 million. Okay, yeah, that makes him one of the biggest mass murderers in your lifetime or mine. I think not Xi Jinping. I think that Mao Zedong, Chinese leader, had like 60 million under his belt. But anyway, he's getting up there with some of the world's greatest monsters. President Trump always knew what the deal was. President Trump, briefed on these things by his intel agencies, was told that this clearly came from a lab, and that, of course, this was a genetically modified molecule that was created in a laboratory, probably by U.S. government funding, with the help of the CIA, Dr. Fauci, who works for the CIA, through Pentagon funding from the Patriot Act. That's right. In the Patriot Act, you can go see that hundreds of millions of dollars, probably billions at this point, was given to Dr. Fauci to go create bioweapons. Dr. Fauci was the chief of bioweapons. And he used to do that here in America. He had too many lab leaks, so they had to offshore these things to Ukraine and China. Funny, those countries keep popping up. Dr. Fauci, of course, funded the Wuhan Virology Laboratory, where they worked with bat coronaviruses. Oh, but the tales that we weave here. It gets so much worse. But before we move on, a reminder that President Trump, saw this from 2,000 yards. Let's go.
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. It comes from China. I want to be accurate.
I just missed the way he said China. It comes from China. China. Dr. Fauci didn't like that, and in fact made many trips to intel agencies, according to whistleblowers, to bribe scientists to say that, well, they weren't sure where it came from. The CIA, upon a change in leadership, gave up the ghost and said, oh yeah, absolutely, we have confidence that this thing leaked from the Wuhan Virology Laboratory. As soon as Dr. Fauci was out of the government, and as soon as the bribes were done, they said what we all knew to be true. Carolyn Levitt taking a little bit of a victory lap here just a couple weeks ago.
I also would just like to point out that several years ago, when I was working in this press shop and President Trump would take to this podium to brief the American people on COVID-19, he suggested that COVID very well may have came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And many members in this very room mocked him for that, said he was spewing conspiracy theories. He was not. We now know that to be the confirmable truth. It took many years for it to come out, but the president was right in this instance again. Sure.
Wow. It's funny. Do you have that Fauci shaking hand? You have that as a play-by-slide? Yeah. It's amazing what happens with the nervous system, right? When it's infected by a virus, or potentially when it's infected by fear. You see Dr. Fauci. You've never seen Dr. Fauci shake before, have you? How many interviews have you watched with this smug a-hole? This asshat has been on your TV so many times. You've never seen him shake. But here he is being asked about creating gain of function in the Wuhan laboratory, and he's shaking. He's physically shivering. He's physically shaking. Play the last frame here. Watch this. Yeah, you can tell we study this stuff. He's shaking because they know, and here's the news. Ladies and gentlemen, he knew it, and they covered it up. And this cover-up trail is why, really, frankly, they should be brought in. They should be brought into The Hague as some of the biggest mass murderers in all of world history. The Biden administration concealed mandated reports of the earliest American military cases of contracting COVID. 7 U.S. service members contracted COVID in Wuhan in October of 2019 when they pressed the button to release the virus. What was going on there? 7 Americans may have contracted COVID-19 in Wuhan in October 2019, several months before the reported start of the pandemic, according to the bombshell military report obtained by the Washington Free Beacon that Biden administration concealed from the public. In December 2022 report, which the Biden administration was required to release but never did, reveals for the first time that 7 U.S. military service members contracted COVID-19 during their participation in the World Military Games in Wuhan in October 2019, contradicting the Biden administration's public claims that in 2021 there was no evidence of any American participants contracting the virus at those games. Those games were seen as ground zero, the pathogen point of origin. You have the World Military Games, which happens in Wuhan with athletes from all over the world. Do we have a play-by-side here to kind of show what it is? Yeah. Okay. These are the Wuhan games. And wiping the virus on the pillow, I don't know what it was, but they gave the virus to every member of every military on Earth. This is the contagion point. To go back to their countries and to take the virus with them. It's amazing actually how this all worked, because all of these soldiers that got COVID flew back through Seattle, and Seattle, Washington was the first nexus point for COVID spreads, where the first deaths were. It's where the first major outbreaks were. It's where the harshest lockdowns were. That's where they traveled through. That airport. Interesting. So Biden covered all of it up. Look at this. They lied about it time and time again. The Senate Armed Services Committee in December 2022 demanded that they release the report. They never did. The games were held within close proximity to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where Chinese scientists backed by the U.S. taxpayer funds conducted risky gain-of-function research on the same bat coronaviruses that caused the pandemic. That research, which was supported by former National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease Director Dr. Fauci, you might know him, also certainly caused COVID-19, according to Rutgers University professor, chemical biologist Richard E. Bright. The American military athletes traveled to and from Wuhan via Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, according to the Prospect, which noted that Washington was one of the earliest COVID-19 hotspots in the country. Well, there you go. The report speculated that other respiratory infections could have also caused COVID-19 symptoms. But ladies and gentlemen, let's just be perfectly honest here. We know exactly what happened. They released the virus in order to rig the election. President Trump's crowning achievement is his economy. And then, lo and behold, I'm sitting there in a meeting with Mike Pompeo. I've talked about this before on the show. I was called in with a meeting with Mike Pompeo. I wasn't friends or anything. They just called in like conservative, called in journalists to go meet with Pompeo. And Pompeo's sitting there telling me, oh, it's time for us to shut down the country. Do what now? This is why Tucker and everybody goes so hard against Pompeo. That guy is such a slime bag. He was in on it. I cannot believe it. You sit back and you realize what you witnessed. Pompeo was in on it. Right at the earliest outbreak of COVID, when nobody even knew what it was or cared. It was just cold, Mike Pompeo calls me up to his office and is like, we got to shut down the country for months. What the hell is wrong with you? Everyone laughed in the room. You're insane, man. No, it was planned. It was planned to destroy President Trump, who was rolling to election victory and seed total chaos throughout the world and society. These people are effing evil. They're totally evil, and they're being exposed now. Ebright, one of the most prominent academic proponents of the theory that COVID-19 leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, said that he was appalled at the Biden administration concealing crucial information about the first potential American cases. Again, they're letting American service members, they were using American service members as lab rats. This was their view of the American service member. I mean, you saw that in the Afghanistan pullout. Lab rats. They gave them COVID. This new information strengthens U.S. allied intelligence data indicating that COVID-19 was circulating in Wuhan in October. Allied intelligence data indicated researching genetically enhanced SARS virus. It was enhanced and it was created and it was made by Dr. Fauci. Something we don't have a ton of time to jump into here, but it's just too wild, is that at the exact same time of the Wuhan Games, there's something called Event 201, which is just one of these little globalist exercises that happened to take place at the exact same date, October 2019, when everyone was getting COVID, when COVID was being released and visited upon all of these service members there for the military games. What was Event 201? Oh, it just happened to be an exercise playing out how a bat-borne coronavirus being released in China, how would we handle that exactly? This is the literal games. This is what they were actually talking about. This is they get all these talking heads together. They get all these eggheads together, and they do simulations. People do this for military. People do this for a lot of different things, but a pandemic would be one of them. This is relatively normal except for it coincided perfectly with what was about to happen, just like Dr. Fauci predicting and guaranteeing that Trump would face a surprise outbreak. Holy moly. It's like two on the nose. They're a little too smug about this. They're a little too in your face. And now it's time to punch back, break their nose, get a little bloody. And there's somebody who's definitely been doing quite a bit of punching back, the great Julie Kelly, who joins our program to talk about this and many other things that are happening in the world right now. The deep state expert. Let's go. You know, Julie, like going through data like this, it's almost like a treasure map, or like a game of Clue, where it's like it's so odd, but like the game of Clue that you can play with like your 3-year-old, where it's like it's so obvious, and it's just kind of dumb, and it's like it's in your face at this point. Like it was, it's clearly Colonel Mustard with the bloody wrench. Like it's just insulting. It's almost like they want us to know. And more importantly, they want us to know that they can do this to us again. And tying it all together with like the way that the Trump administration is treating China right now. I'm all for it. It's right. Like these are the systems that we have to break down. But anyway, just your general thoughts on Dr. Fauci and the cover-up of COVID-19.
It's just infuriating. I mean, Betty, I think that you know this. I was one of the few handful of people on the right who were opposed from the very beginning, what you were just talking about, Mike Pompeo. The very first 15 days, remember, to slow the curve or stop the curve. It was just insanity to me that anyone, especially anyone with a scientific background, could think shuttering people in their homes for 2 weeks would stop them from getting this virus. And I remember spending all of that time. I mean, I was up at like 3 a.m. those days, poring over data, flu data that the CDC kept for years, and especially over, say, the year before. And you could see these little hot spots. Now, that was all that it is. But to your point, one of the hot spots was on the West Coast as the Chinese were coming in. And obviously after this event, but then in early 2020, as they were coming back, say my daughter was at Syracuse University, she said all the Chinese kids came back wearing masks. Why were they wearing masks? They had never done that before. So all of them coming in through California, then spreading out. I mean, this is just one part of exposing what happened. But Benny, what's so frustrating is just no accountability whatsoever for the lies and the cover up and the deception, the businesses and young kids' lives who were permanently destroyed over this. The fact that no one is even arrested, charged, or behind bars like Anthony Fauci, Deborah Birx, and the rest of them, I think that is really very frustrating to most Americans.
Deborah Birx didn't get a pardon, so I suppose you could you could turn the screws there. But yeah, what is your assessment on this? Is your assessment that it was released purposefully by American intel agencies? Dr. Fauci was obviously head of bioweaponry. He had a bunch of little biolabs here in America. They had to offshore those to China and Ukraine. He got given so much money through the CIA, the Pentagon, and the Patriot Act to go do this kind of experimentation. My instinct, Julie, is that Dr. Fauci did this with the approval of the deep state in order to kneecap Trump. Some people say that it was China, actually, in order to maybe stop what's happening right now to China. This seems like payback to me. It seems like payback, bitch. Like that's what's going on right now with China. That's what it seems like to me. But what do I know? What's your assessment?
It definitely seems intentional, whether it was our own U.S. government working with Anthony Fauci and Deborah Birx to shut down, of course, those first 15 days. And then, as you recall, they went back to the president the end of March of 2020 with more data claiming that he needed to extend the lockdowns through the end of April. He consented to that originally, and then by early April, mid-April of 2020 was saying, liberate Michigan, liberate. So, but at the same time, to your point, the CDC, which was still a deep state and always will be, CDC and others were voting recommendations. And this started as early as May 2020, Benny. I remember writing an article saying, is the CDC the new FBI of 2016, a federal agency interfering in our election. That's certainly what they did. So it's hard to imagine now that this was not intentional, whether it was China, whether it was our own government officials working with Fauci, Birx, et cetera, using this fake data and concealing the truth at the same time to influence the 2020 election, which of course we know that it did.
Yeah, this was exactly the point. And they thought they'd be able to get rid of Trump forever. I guess God had other plans. The Supreme Court had other plans for something that you've been writing extensively about on your Declassified with Julie Kelly and your Substack that everybody needs to go and subscribe to. Judge Boasberg, just your dear friend. And you just bet, I didn't, you spent so many hours with Judge Boasberg. He got smacked down. Is this like an official smackdown? Is there any way for this thing to like have a Frankenstein or a zombie revival with the deportations of criminal aliens or the American Enemies Act?
Yes. So what it appears, the Supreme Court came back on Monday and they vacated his 2 temporary restraining orders, the written ones that you and I have been talking about, that first applied to the 5 anonymous illegal Venezuelans who were subject to the President's Alien Enemies Act proclamation. Then Judge Boasberg later that evening on March 15th, turning those 5 unnamed illegals into a class action suit, halting any deportation of those illegals. So the Supreme Court rightly reversed those 2 temporary restraining orders. That was a 5-4 decision, as you have been talking about. Amy Coney Barrett, again, siding with the liberal harpies. Sonia Sotomayor, her dissent was just diabolical. I mean, it is just not rooted in reality whatsoever. So I touch on that a little bit in my article, but there's 2 things outstanding. Number one, Judge Boasberg, so there was supposed to be a hearing in his courtroom yesterday on the plaintiffs. So these are the illegals represented by the ACLU seeking a preliminary injunction, extending the halt to those flights. So Benny, the first step is temporary restraining order. He issued those for 14 days. He extended it another 14 days. Then he was going to consider this preliminary injunction. That hearing was canceled for yesterday. But what he did yesterday in canceling that hearing is he went back to the ACLU and said, if you still think that you can keep this lawsuit in Washington, which the Supreme Court very firmly said is the improper venue for this, because it has to be a habeas issue where these detainees are in custody, which is Texas, not Washington. So he is still trying to help keep this in his courtroom. Even worse, Benny, and this is what I'll be watching for this week, and this is really important, is his opinion related to his accusations that the Trump administration, Trump officials defied his verbal court order. He calls it an oral ruling to return planes on the evening of March 15th, carrying these illegal aliens subject to the Alien Enemies Act. So he believes that that oral ruling is controlling, that it's as valid as a written ruling, but he never made that official on the docket. And then claiming that the Trump administration, Trump officials did not follow that verbal order to return the planes, that they've been trying to cover up information related to the data, the details of those planes. He said in a hearing last week that the government, DOJ, acted in bad faith, and he believed, and this is what he said in his hearing on April 3rd, he believed that there's probable cause that the Trump administration is guilty of enough to conduct an investigation into a contempt charge against who knows who. Some Trump officials, DOJ officials, we're not sure. But that opinion is supposed to be released today or over the next few days.
As I listen to you, and this happens regularly, Julie, I just get angrier and angrier.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Where do we even begin? So this is going to be like Trump term 1. They're going to try and pick people off. They're going to try and Mike Flynn people, right? They're going to try and like scare the administration into inaction by putting people through the process. The process is the punishment. Mm-hmm. So that seems to be the goal here, right? So you find some, as you just said, Trump admin official that approved the flight, Stephen Miller on down, and you say you're in contempt of court, you're going to prison. Is that the strategy? And then you scare everybody else into like inaction?
Right. I mean, I'm not really exactly sure how this would work. I don't think it would be a criminal contempt charge because, of course, he can't bring criminal charges, right? The DOJ would have to do that if it were a federal contempt. I mean, this is what we saw in the Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro. So even if he recommended a criminal contempt charge, who's going to sign off on it? Pam Bondi?
Yeah.
Ed Martin, the DC U.S. attorney. So I'm not really sure what that looks like. It is just Jeb Boasberg flexing what he believes is his muscle, that he is superior to the executive branch, that everything needs to run through him. You know what, Benny, what I always struck me over the last few weeks and, listening to the hearings and getting the transcripts of the hearings, which are most important because you can miss a lot just listening. He was very offended that as this was quickly proceeding through his courtroom on that Saturday, March 15th, that the Trump administration didn't preemptively halt these flights. He said, you knew I was holding this hearing on Saturday evening. You knew that I could turn this into a class action suit and then enter this temporary restraining order, but you rushed people onto these planes and you sent them out of the country before I could do anything. So the Trump administration, the executive branch, has to halt what is clearly under presidential authority, foreign policy, diplomacy, national security. And Jeb Boasberg is the one unelected guy on a federal bench in Washington who everything has to run through him. I mean, that's his mindset. And this is the mindset of every judge in the DC court. And hopefully I can come back and talk about Judge Trevor McFadden, who just forced the Trump administration to allow the Associated Press back into the press room. I mean, they think that they are the referees here and almost always siding with whoever is filing a lawsuit or fighting the Trump administration. So this is what we see with Jeb Boasberg. So as I have noted, this is far from over. He set the preliminary injunction deadline to hear from the ACLU on April 16th. And then, of course, we will see what he comes up with as far as his allegations of contempt.
Just total judicial tyranny.
Yes.
And they're clearly shopping this because they would not have this capacity to do it in Texas. Ken Paxton will be on the program in just a moment, but they wouldn't have the ability to, they wouldn't have the capacity to bring this the same way with the same certitude in Texas. So they're going here and they have Tanya Chutkan did this. Am I correct? Just the open defiance of the Supreme Court and their rulings?
Right. So you have to remember the mindset of your typical Democrat Marxist. They feel that the Supreme Court is illegitimate. That's how they view the Supreme Court. Tanya Chutkan and 3 other DC judges thoroughly rebuked by the Supreme Court in her presidential immunity order. Did she feel bad about it? No. I was in her courtroom on September 5th when the court proceedings in Jack Smith's J6 case started. Did she come in at all feeling a little sheepish or, wow, this is embarrassing? Nope. She strode into that courtroom. She could not wait to get the spotlight back on her. She even made some kind of snarky remarks about the Supreme Court, made snarky remarks about Aileen Cannon, who is overseeing the other case in Florida. I mean, I have said the groupthink in that DC federal courthouse, there's no inches between how they all think. We have now gone from judges like Tanya Chutkan and Jeb Boasberg and others who think that a 4-hour protest on a Wednesday afternoon at a government building represented an attempt to overthrow the government or overturn the results of the 2020 election. But what are they doing on a daily basis? They are using their unchecked power to sabotage the Trump administration and, by extension, 72 million Americans who voted for him to do exactly this. I mean, it has been a 180-degree pivot from what I heard in those courtrooms for 4 years to what they're actually doing right now.
Just very quickly, because you name dropped here, Amy Coney Barrett siding with the libs. I can't believe this is not like a DEI faculty meeting. This photo is made the rounds. What the hell is going on with Amy Coney Barrett? Trump was so good to her. All of us defended her. We worked so hard to get her into that chair. And now she's siding with the MS-13 gang members. I guess she's going to adopt one, according to the Babylon Bee. She has 7 children, all right? So she has 7 kids. And she's voting to make her kids' lives more unsafe, and more miserable by bringing more rapists and killers into the country. What the F, Julie?
I mean, I guess I want to attribute it to the hive mind of, 13-year-old girls who, all want to think the same and act the same. There is speculation that especially after the Dobbs decision and there were threats against her and her family, I believe there was doxing of her children, what schools that they went to, her children's name. I think there's speculation that she is really afraid to enrage the left. But siding with this makes absolutely no sense. As I said, Sonia Sotomayor making an argument that if the Alien Enemies Act in its current form under the president is allowed to stand, that means the government can round up American citizens, throw them on planes, and sweep them out of the country. That's basically what she said. And Ketanji Brown Jackson's brief dissent was no better. So shame on Amy Coney Barrett for lending her name to this crazy unhinged dissent that was filed in this case. I mean, she should be embarrassed for herself that she lent her credibility, or what she has left of it, to those two women and what they said in this case.
Yeah, two are just the dumbest people. I mean, and you read you read their rulings. It's like, you need to wear a helmet. You need to wear a helmet to work. Like, you can't breathe you clearly can't breathe unaided. Like, there's something wrong. Like, you need help. But yeah, Amy Coney Barrett blackmailed. Yeah, I don't know. Sure sounds like it. You know what I mean? Not time for the faint of heart. Not time for the weak. Julie Kelly, you must follow her. Her feed will give you strength. And there's a million people who already follow her. We're just going to round up a little bit. We're not going to tariff your following. We're going to round up. A million people follow Julie. Get in there. And then also follow her work on Declassified with Julie Kelly. Godspeed.
Thanks, Betty.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just so happy that we had that last segment, because we talked a lot about court shopping, district shopping. There's a man who I'm sure would very much like to talk with us about what he's doing right now to criminal aliens in the state of Texas, MS-13 gang members, rapists, and killers. He's the brand new, freshly minted, just hours ago, still got the new car smell on him, Senate candidate in Texas, running for the Republican Senate seat there against John Cornyn. He's the current Texas Attorney General. His name is Ken Paxton, and he joins us live now. Mr. Attorney General, congratulations on your successful announcement. Saw you all over my feed last night.
Well, thank you. It was an exciting evening for me, exciting day today. It's been a long time coming to change out a senator in Texas that hasn't been representing the state appropriately or well. And so after, he's been there for 23 years, it'll be 24 years. I think it's time for a change. So I'm ready for the challenge.
We were just speaking about some of these rulings in Washington, D.C. about criminal immigrants, and your opponent, who would be John Cornyn, has been very, very weak on the immigration issue, which really is quite unforgivable, given the fact that Texas has the longest border with Mexico and is the victim as a state of so many criminal alien crimes. As your time as Attorney General, I'm sure that you've experienced so much. Can you speak to the problem of criminal immigration in Texas?
Yeah, look, we have almost 2/3 of the border, and he's been awful on the border. He's opposed building a wall, which works. And I've talked to Border Patrol over and over. They love it because it not only protects us, protects them, gives them protection from the cartels and getting shot. So they like it. He's also been for amnesty, suggesting that the 12 million here, we need to take care of them. That is very different from what our voters believe. It affects them in a very negative way because, as you said, we deal with the border every day. So look, we still have a lot of work to do. President Trump has done, like, on day one, we saw how when you enforce laws, it actually works. We saw it in his last administration. And we saw what happened when Joe Biden said, I'm not enforcing immigration law. We need different laws. We never needed different laws. We needed a president to follow the law, and we didn't have that for the last 4 years.
The commentary on Judge Boasberg, this is obviously the most prominent legal case in the country right now. because of its absurdity that that the president doesn't have the power to deport criminal aliens or to use military planes. At what point do you have a limiting principle that says these judges will be deciding battlefield movements in wartime? It seems incredibly egregious. And most importantly, the Supreme Court said, no. You have to go down to Ken Paxton land. You have to go down to Texas to actually litigate this. It's a habeas issue. And they're still in defiance. This seems like on its face, a constitutional crisis with this radical D.C. District Court. Your take on it, sir?
Well, first of all, John Cornyn helped confirm this guy. So it's a real problem. The president, this is actually his purview, absolutely his purview constitutionally. And for some judge to step in and insert his judgment into what President Trump's doing with international issues and dealing with terrorists is way beyond the scope of this judge's authority. And it should be challenged and it should be stopped. And I know Congress is working to pass a bill that would limit these judges from going after President Trump and some of his actions that are clearly authorized by the Constitution. So hopefully we could stop this, because I know that when we were trying to get injunctions, they were very rare and they were very focused. We got very few national injunctions, and they always had to deal with a national issue, not what they're dealing with. We're actually trying to stop the president from doing his job.
You have some major weakness with John Cornyn, somebody who's sided with Mitch McConnell so very often. Mitch McConnell doing everything that he possibly can to sabotage the Trump agenda. You're very close with the president. Are you going to be doing any events with President Trump, or are you going to be campaigning with him?
Look, I'd love it if he was open and willing to do that. I'd be inviting him as much as he'd be willing to come. Certainly been a support of his. I love what he's done for the country. I loved his first term. That's why I showed up at Mar-a-Lago when he announced as one of two elected officials, Troy Nehls and I, the only two elected officials at that initial opening. So remember back then, DeSantis had a lot of momentum. Many people thought that Trump was done. As a matter of fact, John Cornyn suggested that Trump should be done and that he should not run and that he might be guilty of committing crimes. And at that time, I knew that President Trump was the best choice, and that's why, as a loyal person, I showed up to support the president. So, I look forward to working with the president. He's doing an amazing job.
You were there at the Department of Justice. We actually sat next to each other when President Trump gave that banger of a speech. It was actually a lot of that was a rowdy one. That was a fun and enjoyable. It's a kind of historic event actually to be part of. Very cool.
It was awesome. And I tell you what, just because I know that he's experienced so much from the Department of Justice and the FBI going after him, and I also have experienced that. So when he was speaking, it was refreshing. It was exciting to me, because we definitely have a problem with the FBI and the Department of Justice, the corruption, the politicization, the weaponization to go after President Trump, to go after me, to go after others. We can't have a free country and have that type of activity, political activity within the Department of Justice and the FBI. So, you heard his speech. It was pretty awesome.
I assume that if you are to get to Washington, D.C., and we certainly hope that you do, if you were to get to Washington, D.C., you'll be on a judiciary committee, right? It would seem like a natural place for you as an attorney general. You'd have subpoena power. You'd be able to look into some of these deep state operations that is so near and dear to the audience on this program, because we want to expose them, and we also see them as the greatest threat to our republic. Where would you start in Washington, D.C.? I know it's kind of a broad question, but in the vein of government corruption, where would you begin if you are the next senator from Texas?
Look, I'm already trying to get them to open up files and expose things that happen at the Department of Justice, FBI. That's where I would start, because fundamentally, if you do not have a fair justice system, if it's based on politics, we're no different than, Venezuela or China or Russia. We're no different than most countries. And that's one of the things that distinguishes us. We have a justice system that's supposed to be blind and that is supposed to be all about justice. And clearly, under the Biden administration, we were far from that. It was purely political, and they ignored real crimes and devoted resources to going after political crimes, or supposed political crimes, what they viewed as political crimes.
You mentioned China there. Mitch McConnell, who has led all the Republicans in the Senate. He made a lot of money in China. He's made a fortune in China. I think that should be illegal, actually. And I think that should, and frankly, like, I don't think that there should be like dual loyalty things at all in our Congress. And, making massive fortunes in countries that are ripping off Americans and that are our enemies, in fact, should just be a non-starter. Would you be in favor of legislation that would clamp down on that? Some of the insider trading, some of the traitorism that just happens in our Congress?
Like, absolutely. It ought to be fully disclosed, first of all, those relationships. And it doesn't seem like, even though they disclosed things, it doesn't seem like that was known very well. I mean, I knew it, but it wasn't commonly known that his wife was very involved on different boards and that they were making a lot of money. And obviously that has an impact on your decisions about the country. And he's in a very, obviously as a majority leader, very influential position guiding policy on China. And obviously he's pro-China. And that's a real problem. So yes, there ought to be some legislation that deals with, one, more disclosure about it, and two, maybe some limitations, certainly on insider trading. It's ridiculous that is allowed and that these congressmen and senators make so much money insider trading.
Yeah. I know that we're up against a hard out, but I did want to ask you something that is more of a Texas issue, but certainly hits my timeline all the time, Mr. Attorney General. And it's something that's directly in your wheelhouse. It has to do with what's being called a Sharia city that's being built in Texas. And I know the governor's spoken a lot about it. It's called the Epic City, and it's like a entire massive compound that was purchased to create sort of a Sharia law village in the city. There's a lot of plans for it and so on. Can you give me a status update on this? It's regularly at the top of my feed, and a lot of people care about it. And it was a real head turner, frankly, to see this happen in Texas. What's the status of this project?
So they're being investigated by my office, by other state agencies. They're actually planning on setting up in my home county, which is concerning. But, we have First Amendment rights. You can have whatever religious beliefs you want. However, if your religious beliefs start impeding on state law, you start not following state law or federal law or the Constitution. Obviously, we don't want Sharia law in Texas controlling what certain segments do. That's not going to be allowed. So, we're in the middle of looking at this. We're in the middle of investigating. There's not a lot I can say about the details because typically during an investigation, we don't talk about very much. But we won't allow Sharia law to have effect in the state of Texas.
Well, that's a fantastic answer. It's in line with the governor also of the state, and it's great to hear. There's obviously a pretty fraught moment for Western civilization, and there needs to be some fight left in this country, and it's wonderful to see that there's still fighters left in Texas.
We have a few.
You fought through your own, I guess you could call it, deep Texas state attacks, and you're victorious, more powerful than ever. You have our full endorsement. We do not like John Cornyn. He's regularly fought us online, which is so dumb. And just and in closing here, like, we're trying to help. We're just trying to give constructive criticism. But man, I've never seen somebody with such a feline, feminine energy, such thin skin. He lashed out. He or his team lashed out at us, on X multiple times, right? And it's a silly way to handle things.
Well, look, I don't think he can help it. I think he's done this for, he's been in the Senate for 23 years. He wants to be there for 30. He wants to present himself as something he's not, which is a MAGA guy that is doing the right things for Texas. That's never been John Cornyn until right now, during a new primary where he knows he has me out there, and suddenly he's Mr. Conservative. He's all with Trump. That's never been true. So, I mean, just holding him accountable, and what you're doing is right. He deserves to be held accountable, and as a result of that, he struggles. He can't answer the questions about what he's doing, either good or bad, and not get mad because now you're challenging what he really is, and he doesn't want people to know that.
Mr. Attorney General, to the people listening right now, just know this. If you're a Texas Republican, a primary voter, or you're interested in being a Texas primary voter, John Cornyn is been atrocious, gets an F rating on the Second Amendment in the state of Texas, okay? A state that was built on firearms, and then gets like an F rating on the border in a state with the largest border with Mexico. So that's all you need to know, actually, here. Meanwhile, Ken Paxton has been holding it down for patriots in the state of Texas, fighting back. And again, we're proud to call you a friend of the show.
Hey, thank you. And it was great to see you at the DOJ. Who would have thought? United States together, right? What are the odds?
Look at us. It's the meme. Look at us. You should look over at Ken Paxton's X account. He's got 500,000 subscribers. Get in there, punch, follow, and follow along with what's going to be a fantastic Make Texas Great Again campaign. Godspeed, Mr. Attorney General.
Hey, thank you for having me on. And also to kenpaxton.com, you can go donate and see what we're doing. Thank you.
We have it right here up on the screen. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Hey, man, you know what? One-stop shop here. We're able to lock in for all of the news, and it's been wild. Oh man, maybe they're doing that. I have a feeling that they're doing this in order to try and fire hose us, right? There's like too much happening. It makes me angry because we should be having a large, long, and extremely detailed conversation about Ukraine and their potential involvement with Trump's assassination. That was a massive story yesterday. This bombshell story about Fauci, the tabletop exercises about bat coronaviruses while they're using American military members as lab rats for COVID. This should be a massive story. We should be talking about this. But with what's going on with China and the trade deals and this kind of like affecting everybody's portfolios, it's some of this stuff's getting lost. So we're doing our very best on this program to like throw it down and like lock in. Here's something that was lost yesterday. It's just something we just got to cover. DOGE, a massive DOGE discovery. What will it be? Ladies and gentlemen. Caroline Leavitt confirms DOGE discovery that Donald Trump called horrifying. What's going to happen next? It's going to be a monster. According to our sources, apparently is going to imply abject corruption from within the federal government with many of these contracts. Here's Caroline Leavitt yesterday confirming the discovery and saying something very, very specific. Watch.
And then the president on Thursday told us that there was an incredible discovery that the DOGE team had made. He called it horrible and incredible. Can you reveal that yet? Give us details on what it was about?
There has been a discovery. I hate to leave you hanging on a cliff, but I don't want to get ahead of the president on that. But I can confirm there has been a discovery. It's just not quite yet ready for release.
I don't want to get ahead of the president is what you say when the president, who, of course, his time is incredibly valuable and is used quite sparingly in these situations, is going to make the announcement. President Trump on Air Force One started this news cycle by saying that DOGE has just informed him that they made a truly shocking discovery. Trump called it horrifying. Well, let's go.
And into the United States. Sir, do you have a sense of how long Elon Musk's mission will last and when he will depart?
Well, Elon is fantastic. And I think it's, he's a patriot, and I think it's a shame what they're doing with his car company. And a great car. It's a great car, great product. And it tells you what a patriot he is. He's amazing. No, I mean, as long as he'd like. I like smart people, and he's a smart person. I also like him personally. When he endorsed me, that's when I really got to know him. I knew him a little bit before that, but not much. And then he endorsed me. And it was a very strong, embracing endorsement, as we all know. And I would say Elon will stay for a certain period of time, and then he's going to want to get back to his businesses full time. But he's done a fantastic job. We found hundreds of, think of it, just hundreds of, we found millions of dollars of fraud and abuse and waste. And
watch this.
They're still going. I mean, they're going strong. They found something today that's horrible. It's horrible. So what they found, well, you'll find out very soon.
So they found something today that's horrible, horrible. You're going to find out very, very soon. What is it exactly? Well, we know it's not this. And this is what was found, that millions of criminal aliens were shoved into our social security system so that they could get goodies and fat benefits from the American taxpayer. Oh, you just pop up the tweet, please. And that those criminal aliens were given voting cards. You know, at what point do you start hanging people? At what point do you start saying the firing squad has to come back? The electric chair, public executions. Like, at what point is this not total and complete? It's treason, okay? It's treason. Look at that. In 2024, at the end of Joe Biden, so they're adding hundreds of thousands. Can we please go to the fullest? They're adding hundreds of thousands a year, 200, 500, 900. Okay, so you got 2 million people right there. So they added 2 million people in Joe Biden's time that are criminal aliens to Social Security to get benefits that you pay for, to get voting cards, because what you need is a Social Security number in many places to apply to be a voter. And then at the very end, they shove another 2 million on there. On their way out the door, they shove the gold bars from the Titanic right into their pants pockets. And what does that mean? The point of this is to rig elections. It's treason. It's treason against you and me. The number of criminal aliens that should be living in this country are 0 because they're criminals. The number of criminal aliens that vote in this country, there was always this thing that was happening. They were screaming, man, there's no such thing as mass voter fraud. There's no such thing as mass voter fraud. If one criminal alien votes, that's mass voter fraud. Because what that did was cancel your vote. Your vote didn't count. Somebody who doesn't love this country, who should be deported, that doesn't belong here, this is not their home, just stole your most sacred right. You wonder why we use the metaphor of Donald Trump sitting out front of our broken home with a shotgun and a massive fence. It's time for daddy to come home and for there to be someone in charge of this place because it's falling to pieces. I love this country. And this is why we worked so hard to elect President Trump. We needed to renegotiate the mortgage. We needed to stop having people stealing from us. And we needed to stop having looters sleep in our house. Our house is for our children, meaning our American children. That's what America first means. President Trump is now sitting outside with the bug zapper in the rocking chair with the shotgun saying, I wouldn't go down there if I were you. We had literal homeless shelters set up inside of our house with our children sleeping there. What kind of a father would you be if you let that happen? And these people voted. Is this the DOGE finding? No. Apparently it's something way worse. Way worse. So what's it going to be? Well, Elon Musk, I know we put it up yesterday, but at the same time that President Trump was saying, Elon's found something horrible, Elon Musk posted something really mysterious. It's worth hunting it down. It's the Chuck Schumer. And did Chuck Schumer tweet? He's quote tweeting Chuck Schumer. I know it's on my timeline. And I apologize, guys. Sometimes I just put the puzzle together while we're live. Elon Musk quote tweeting Chuck Schumer saying, hey, Chuck, are you involved in some of the fraud? You couldn't be. It couldn't be you involved in the actual fraud that we are uncovering at DOGE. No, you would never. Elon Musk is a very sarcastic person, very funny person. And there it is. And here's his tweet. It couldn't be you, Chuck. Is this what it is? Are we going to see mass resignations? That's what Tim Burchett told us yesterday. You're about to see mass resignations in Washington, D.C. You're about to see, after the DOGE findings, Tim Burchett's on the subcommittee for DOGE, Because after the DOGE findings, you're going to see people quit. They're going to have to leave. Elon Musk says, Chuck Schumer's interns sent some screed about DOGE. Chuck, I'm starting to think that you're getting a piece of the action with government fraud, but no, that couldn't possibly be the reason, could it? Curious face emoji. This was said at the exact same time, within hours of Donald Trump saying that Elon's found something horrifying. Is Democrat leadership gonna resign? What are we gonna find out? What's next? What will be the shoe to drop? We had some breadcrumb trails laid for us that the government buildings that sit empty are owned by Chuck Schumer. That these government buildings that the government pays obscene amounts of rent to are owned by people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. We had a little birdie whisper to us that might be something that's coming. So the reason why the government has to spend all this money on these empty offices. You saw yesterday, are you starting to see the picture now? You saw yesterday a report that the government spent $4 billion in furniture for empty offices. Wow. Who owns that furniture company exactly? Can we figure that out? And the government paying rent on these massive empty buildings with nobody working in them. Who owns those buildings? Is it Chuck Schumer? Is it Chuck Schumer furnishing these empty buildings? What's going on here exactly? Oh, it's going to be very juicy. It's going to be very, very interesting. Looking forward to it. Trump's DHS signs deal with IRS to more easily locate illegal aliens. This on the heels of the IRS bringing back a brand new law that's going to fine criminal aliens. Oh, man, this is awesome. So we have close sources at DHS. We have close sources at DHS that tell us that there's this CBP One app. That's the little app, right? That the Biden administration made so that you could illegally import yourself to America. That's what it is. And that app they are now using to send push messages to these criminal aliens about how they're going to be fined $1,000 a day for being in the country illegally. Well, listen, just the realities of all of this is that if you're a migrant that comes here, you're on welfare. You can't afford $1,000 a day fine. Virtually no one can. So you're completely effed and it's time to go home. Self-deportation is the easiest and cheapest way, actually, to get people out of this country. They're using the push notifications on the app in order to send that notification every day. Hey, you just racked up another $1,000 fine. Ping, 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 ping. That's $7,000 this week. And now the federal government is able to levy those fines against property. So you're going to go take people's houses if you stay here criminally, if you're a criminal alien. Genius. How else can you find criminal aliens? Well, look at this. Trump's DHS signs deal with IRS to more easily locate the illegal aliens. The Treasury Department and Department of Homeland Security have reportedly signed a partnership that will help immigration and customs enforcement agents easily locate millions of illegal aliens living in the United States. On Thursday, the Washington Post reported that the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem signed a memorandum that allows ICE agents to request tax information on criminal aliens looking to locate and deport them. Under the terms of the deal, Noem or ICE Director Todd Lyons can submit a request to the IRS for information regarding illegal aliens who have been ordered to be deported. From there, the IRS officials could hand over information such as illegal aliens. Well, of course. Today, there are an estimated 1.3 million criminal aliens living in the United States, despite having been ordered deported by a criminal immigration judge. Okay, well, there's probably, they say there are definitely I don't know, what is the estimates now after Biden? 20 million criminal aliens in this country? How many non-citizens do we have in this country? 20 million? 10 million? 10 million, I think, is the number that just came in during Biden. And 4 million of those are on Social Securities, jackasses. So, very good. Very cool, man. Be cool. Partnership with IRS and DHS comes as officials with the Department of Government Efficiency say they have found potentially millions of illegal aliens on Social Security and Medicaid and voter rolls. Maybe that's the big deal. I'm not sure. I know that the head of the IRS quit. That's always a good day. Head of the IRS has now resigned in disgrace over a new agreement where the IRS will share tax collection data of illegal criminal aliens. Listen, man, you're cooked. Let's just say it. You're cooked. If you're a criminal alien in this country, get out. The best way to save yourself some real trouble. And if you're getting $1,000 fine a day and you stay here for a year, you're never going to be able to come back. They're going to take your home. They're going to take everything that you own. They're going to seize, forfeiture all of your assets. And this is how you actually clean up a country. Benny, but what about the people that are just here to, pick fruit or whatever? Jasmine Crockett. I pick cotton. That's what she said yesterday. She says, we're done picking cotton. What about those people? You're a criminal if you came here illegally. I don't want criminals in my country, and I don't want my kids to grow up around criminals. So the answer is no. I will not cry for Abuela. I will not sob with AOC down in some empty parking lot somewhere. I'm done. I've seen firsthand, here where I live, and I'm sure you have where you live, the horrors of criminal alien crime. A lady was killed just a couple blocks from here. She was driving with her 2-year-old. And some criminal alien, drunk off his ass, had 54 locos in him, in a truck, slams into her and kills him. Shouldn't have been here. You take that man out of his community, away from his morals and the ties that bind, away from the sort of rocks that you depend upon. You place him here in this, to him, an alien society, maybe with too many vices, not sure, but with first world luxuries. And sometimes they go crazy. Can you explain Laken Riley's murder? This guy just snap. So no, I don't want to raise my kids around criminals. The end. All criminal aliens are criminals. The end. Did we get a number? How many illegal aliens? 10.8 million for Biden. 10.8 million. When are the treason charges, man? When do we get the treason charges? I can't encourage you enough to go read this report on the Biden administration concealing the earliest Americans getting COVID, where it came from. It is bombshell stuff at the Free Beacon. It's really, really good to be somebody who's trying as hard as we can to create news cycles around here, right? We're doing our best. And one final thing that I think is really important on this is the Dr. Fauci angle. I just want to come back to this. This is one thing that we didn't get, which is the Dr. Fauci angle with the scientists turning on him, man. All of these scientists are now turning on Fauci, calling him the father of the virus, and saying that he's effectively, there it is. Here you go, Klein. You just gotta read this headline. Just realize that us saying Dr. Fauci for jail might actually be a reality at this point. COVID did come from a Wuhan laboratory. The US and UK stayed silent to protect their own spies in China. World-leading expert reveals bombshell evidence of top-secret cover-up that cost millions of lives, calls Dr. Fauci the father of the virus. Who's doing this? Robert Redfield, the man who was in charge of the CDC at the time. Wild. These are the headlines that are right now dropping across the world. I think that we are in for some wild times, man. And it's exciting. It's world changing. And we are excited to watch the world change with you. If you have the right mindset, man, well, you can really endure anything, and also you can win. It's all in. It's not easy, but it's all up here. So we're excited about what's to come. Putting the pieces together, and here's President Trump with a shotgun on the front porch. There you go. Our house was rickety. It was falling in. We were being abused. We were being invaded. We were being taken advantage of. People were stealing our doorknobs. Not with the aviators. That's a Joe Biden thing. No. Do the other one with him with the hayseed in his mouth. Yeah, this is my favorite one. That's right. And now there's Papaw out with a shotgun out front saying, "You're not going to steal from us anymore, you rat bastards." There you go. That's a good one. And Pappy is really handy, and he's putting the house back together. And so, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that your house is in order and standing. Our verse of the day will help you do that. Who will bring any charge against those whom God has chosen? It is God who justifies, from Romans 8:33. Yeah, man, you've seen it. You've seen the fake charges. You've seen all the fake news. God has a plan. It's one of the best lines I ever heard during this 2024 election, and you are going to be stunned to hear who it's from. It's from a comedian. His name's Kill Tony. And Kill Tony was giving this speech in Madison Square Garden. He called Puerto Rico an island of garbage, right? And everyone lost their minds, over that. But what he said in that speech that got totally overlooked, that is the best line, is he says, "You know what? I hope you choose Trump in November. God already made his choice in Butler, Pennsylvania." That's a good one, dude. Who can bring any charges against those whom God has chosen? Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you are justified today and that you are standing correct with your Lord and Savior. And if God is for you, who can be against you? Right? That's right. The same power that raised Christ from the dead resides within you. And that is something to certainly celebrate and rejoice in. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Benny. This has been The Benny Show. See ya.
Surprise, mother. You want me to put tariffs on a chicken? Chicken jockey.
Skyfall, psyops, nighttime terror, alien codes from distant mirror, satellites burning in the sky. Secrets fall but never die. Hey, hey, hey! Guess what day? Guess what? Guess what? I'll tell you the tale of a Chinese bug, a military drill to pollute your pure blood. Go back and tell the others, buy all the toilet paper. The Wuhan laboratory filled up the cemetery. Transhuman globalists tried to take control of us. But guess what? Guess what? Everything will be okay. Guess what day it is? It's hump day! Get it on! Hump day! The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings, and their dying legacy, media deal weeds. Soon will the Benny Show come to mind us all from lives for fun. Feed the gold and bring the gun, we sail for number one.
we show. Come to mine the salt from lids for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for #1, the biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest king.